DJ's True Crime 2026, turn the lights down low, let the darkness mix. Midnight whispers on an old back road. Every secret's got a story untold. Cold case files and a smoking gun. Truth runs deep where the shadows run. Footsteps echo in an empty hall. Somebody's watching from behind the wall. Red string tied to a photograph. Broken clocks in a shattered past. Every clue's just one more fix. Welcome to 2026. DJ's True Crime 2026. Twisted tales and dangerous tricks. Every lie's got a heavy price. Roll the tape, let's roll the dice. Heartbeat racing, ticket ticks. Truth cuts deep like sharpened sticks. If you're brave, come take your fix. DJ's True Crime 2026. Headlines screaming in black and white. City sirens in the dead of night. Coffee cold on a cluttered desk. One more name on the suspect list. Footprints fade in the falling rain. Every witness recalls the same. A fleeting face, a shadowed mix. Another mystery in 26. Maps on the wall with pins stuck in. Where do we start and where's it end? Truth don't sleep and neither do I. Chasing ghosts that never die. DJ's True Crime 2026. Secrets buried in the politics. Truth is sharper than it looks. Hidden deep between the books. Turn it up, let the story stick. Every twist hits hard and quick. Stay tuned for the final fix. DJ's True Crime 2026. In the midnight city where the neon lights glow. DJ's on the mic and the whole world knows. From the streets to the sky where the blue flames fly. We ride together strong, never asking why. Hear the beat of the drums like a dragon's roar. Every step we take makes the crowd want more. Through the fire in the night, we stand as one. When the music hits hard, that's when we run. We are DJ's Blue Dragon Squad. Rising through the night, breathing blue fire, burning bright in the light. Hear the crowd scream loud when the bass drops hard. Stand up, stand proud for the Blue Dragon Squad. And the sound where the legends grow. Every beat we drop makes the whole place glow. From the underground vibes to the main stage flame. Blue dragons flying high in the game. Hear the thunder roll when the speakers pound. Feel the energy shaking the ground. Every soul in the room feels the spark ignite. Blue dragons rising in the night. We are DJ's Blue Dragon Squad. Rising through the night, breathing blue fire, burning bright in the light. Hear the crowd scream loud when the bass drops hard. Stand up, stand proud for the Blue Dragon Squad. Dragon Squad. No fear, no change, just the rhythm we ride. Blue flames in our hearts, got the squad by our side. When the night falls down and the music's loud, you'll hear the roar of the dragon crowd. We are DJ's Blue Dragon Squad. Hear the legend call. Blue fire rising as the shadows fall. Hands in the air while the beat hits hard. Forever we ride. Blue Dragon Squad.
Sweet boy Sebastian, where are you? The stars stayed up all night waiting too. The next morning your mama came up. You weren't there, your room was empty. Sweet boy Sebastian, where'd you go? Your room was still left the same as it was. The whole world has been searching, but there was no evidence of where you went. The wind whistles softly in the night and morning. It hums your name and hums the song of I am the tiger. It's so quiet without your laughter and smile. Life gets harder and harder every day. Sweet boy Sebastian, where have you gone? Everyone has searched through forests and water and near your house with no sighting or sin. If you're hiding, come out and come back. Sebastian, your dad is worried, and so is the whole wide world. Sebastian, where are you? Please show us signs wherever you may be. We are your army, sweet boy Sebastian, so please come home. So please.
Hello, hello. Can anyone hear me? And can you guys see me? I got a fresh haircut today. Jacob, I'm gonna let you up. Thank you, CJ. The mighty cheese wedge. Okay.
Yep, I'm back. Did y'all miss me?
Cheese
I'm back.
mighty. Oh my goodness. Okay. So. Darn it, where did my... I sure hope I did not. I have to find my... Where did I put it? Oh. Just wait, you guys. I'm just trying to get to my... Is this it? No, wait. Oh my goodness. You guys just wait, I'm trying to get my... No, that's not it. I'm trying to get my... Oh, okay, never mind. There, I found it. Yes. Okay, my copyright banner. I found it. Woohoo. Okay. Okay, here it is. Trying to let it load. Okay, there. So, fair use. Copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay. There you go. So we read that, and now I'm going to share my screen. So here's the video.
Here's the pen that erases scratches instantly. Look, no cut.
No. Okay, that's
no Photoshop.
No. Here it is.
It could have left the jurisdiction before anyone realized it was significant. Another factor influenced the decision: the early morning sanitation pickup schedule for Hendersonville's residential zones. Records showed that a waste truck serviced parts of the Stafford Court subdivision on February 26th, the same morning Katie discovered her son missing.
Sounds good,
That
CJ.
timing led to speculation, unconfirmed but logical, that if any physical evidence had been removed from the property, it might have gone out with that collection. Investigators made it clear there was no evidence to suggest that scenario actually happened. But given the stakes, they couldn't afford to ignore even the faintest possibility. The landfill search was about eliminating the last unexamined path, not pursuing a specific suspect. From a forensic standpoint, landfill investigations are notoriously limited. Even when a target is known, a specific bag, a particular item decomposition, chemical exposure, and compaction make recovery extremely difficult. After 10 to 12 days, most organic traces degrade beyond usable DNA. In this case, nearly 10 days had already passed before the first excavation. That alone drastically reduced the odds of finding anything identifiable.
Okay.
By the evening of March 8th, the
chat.
operation was called off. The sector was cleared and recovered according to environmental regulations. Equipment was sanitized, and samples were sent for lab testing. Within days, results confirmed what the field teams already knew. No trace of Sebastian Rogers existed in the landfill. The official narrative, released jointly by the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, TBI, and FBI, framed the Kentucky dig as part of a broader, methodical search pattern. But unofficially, it marked a turning point in the investigation. The failure to find even trace evidence in such an extreme location reinforced a theory that had been quietly forming among the senior detectives. If Sebastian wasn't on land, in water, or among the waste stream, then he had likely left the area by controlled means. That meant transportation, possibly a vehicle. What made that possibility so troubling was that there was still no record of any vehicle near the Proudfoot home during the disappearance window. No headlights, no license plates, no engine sounds reported by neighbors. The Kentucky search closed one door while opening another. Someone, somewhere, might have moved the boy before sunrise on February 26th, quietly, efficiently, and without leaving a trace. That scenario shifted the focus of the investigation from environmental to human. It was no longer about where Sebastian could have gone. It was about who had access to him, and whether anyone close to the family had opportunity, motive, or reason to conceal the truth. As the physical...
Speaking of truth, CP and KK are not telling the truth. So where is Sebastian? KK and CP, just come out already and tell the truth. Stop lying through your teeth and spit the truth out. The more you keep lying, the worse it gets.
Search stalled. Attention shifted toward the family itself, not out of accusation, but necessity. When a case produces no environmental or digital evidence, investigators inevitably turn inward. They begin to examine background, relationships, and the psychological climate of the household. In the disappearance of Sebastian Rogers, that process opened a complicated set of personal histories and official records. The first document to reserve this was the 2016 divorce decree between Sebastian's parents, Katie Rogers, later Proudfoot, and Seth Rogers. It described a young child already facing severe behavioral and developmental challenges. Court records noted that Sebastian had been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and a rare chromosomal anomaly known as 6q27 deletion syndrome, a condition often associated with delayed speech, impulsivity, and difficulty processing emotional regulation. At that time, both parents agreed that his care would require structure and supervision. The records also referenced instances of self-harm during emotional outbursts. In one documented incident, when he was denied a favorite activity, Sebastian reportedly hit his head against the wall and bit his own arm. The files made no allegations, but they painted a portrait of a child who struggled with sensory control, one who could be unpredictable under stress. As the years went on, those behavioral patterns appeared to intensify. According to statements later given by his father, Sebastian had developed a clear preference for one household. He told me he didn't want to go back to his mom's. Seth said in an interview after the disappearance. I don't know why. He just said he felt better here. That comment, vague but loaded, became a focal point for investigators trying to understand what life was like for Sebastian in the days before he vanished. Did he feel unsafe? Or was it a simple expression?
In my opinion, and allegedly, I'm pretty sure Sebastian did feel unsafe. I don't think he felt safe at all. The way he got treated by CP and KK, I'd feel unsafe too.
Of a teenager's mood swing. Then came the CPS rumor, an unverified claim circulating online that the Tennessee Child Protective Services had once investigated Katie's home after an alleged bell incident. The story suggested that a disciplinary method involving a small bell or chime had prompted a welfare check years earlier. To date, no official record of that case has been released, and the agency has declined to comment. But the rumor persisted, fueling public suspicion. For investigators, however, speculation wasn't evidence. They sought documentation. CPS, bound by confidentiality laws, provided only a limited statement confirming that past reports involving the family were reviewed and closed without findings anything. The wording left open interpretation, reviewed, not necessarily unfounded, but closed. It neither exonerated nor implicated anyone. Despite the lack of confirmation, these fragments of history began to shape the investigative tone. They raised an uncomfortable but unavoidable question. Was Sebastian's disappearance the result of external circumstances, or had something occurred within the family home that night? In interviews with detectives, Katie described her son as sensitive, creative, and affectionate. Though prone to emotional shutdowns when overstimulated, she maintained that their relationship had been improving, that they'd spent the day before his disappearance laughing and relaxed. She also emphasized that her husband, Chris Proudfoot, had been away on business, hours from home, and could not have been present. Investigators verified Chris's location through phone GPS and transaction.
In my opinion, Sebastian, from looking at videos of Sebastian and KK at Texas Roadhouse, in my opinion, I'm pretty sure Sebastian was very overstimulated and overwhelmed. Even though he was very well mannered. He had very great manners. That's what a young gentleman that's what Sebastian was. He's a young gentleman and he had very good manners. But in my opinion, I'm pretty sure he was overstimulated.
Logs. His alibi held. Still, scrutiny extended to everyone in the inner circle. The emotional landscape of the family had become too fragmented to ignore. A week after the disappearance, while Seth continued daily search efforts alongside volunteers, Katie and Chris quietly left Hendersonville. They packed belongings into an RV and drove away, citing safety concerns. After receiving threats online, many saw the move as suspicious. Law enforcement did not label them suspects, but the optics were damaging. To the public, it looked like retreat. To detectives, it complicated communication. They now had to coordinate long-distance interviews with the child's mother, while the father remained on the ground, speaking to reporters and search teams. Seth's presence at search sites was constant. Local media often captured him walking wooded areas with a flashlight, distributing flyers, and pleading for information. "I'm not leaving until I bring my son home," he told reporters. The contrast between his persistence and Katie's withdrawal fed narratives that would soon dominate online spaces: divided family, hidden tension, conflicting loyalties. Within law enforcement circles, the departure of the mother wasn't treated as guilt, but as an obstacle. Investigators prefer unified families, centralized communication, shared updates, synchronized timelines. In this case, coordination fractured. Statements began to diverge. Katie's recollection of the last night was consistent with her initial report, but some minor details shifted: how loud the thud was, how long she waited before going to bed, whether a hallway light had been on. Detectives noted those inconsistencies in their logs, but acknowledged they might be the result of trauma and memory decay, not deceit. Another challenge lay in the nature of autism-related disappearances. Children and teens on the spectrum often act independently of emotion. They might leave a safe space simply to follow a sensory trigger, a sound, a light,
And for those that are watching from the bushes, whether if you just found my channel and you're new here, please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't, and share my channel out into the YouTube algorithm. Let's get back to the video.
texture, and that behavior can look inexplicable to neurotypical observers. By the third week, the emotional distance between the two parental households was unmistakable. Seth continued coordinating search efforts publicly. Katie and Chris limited communication to their legal representatives and investigators. The family's division became both a public narrative and an investigative complication. For detectives, the family's history and the CPS context didn't prove foul play, but they did establish emotional motive possibilities: stress, exhaustion, conflict, misunderstanding. Cases involving special needs children often carry heavy caregiver strain. If an accident occurred, fear of blame could drive concealment. If a runaway event occurred, guilt could drive avoidance. Both reactions create silence, and silence was all this case had. By late March, investigators had little more than psychological data: a family split by geography and public perception, a child with a known vulnerability, and a household history shadowed by unverified reports. None of it answered what happened, but together it defined the human context of the mystery: a fractured environment where truth might not be shared, and cooperation no longer guaranteed. As one detective privately summarized, "Everyone says they want to find Sebastian. I believe that. But they're not all pulling in the same direction anymore." And with that division, the family behavior or statistics, but about something larger. By April 2024, the case of Sebastian Rogers had entered a phase rarely seen in modern investigations, one defined entirely by absence. No video, no footprint, no object, no digital signal. A boy had vanished in a populated neighborhood lined with cameras, sensors, Wi-Fi routers, and motion lights, yet not one device had recorded his exit. In an age where every movement leaves a trace, this disappearance left none. For investigators, it became known internally as the no-trace paradox, a case that existed without evidence. Every discipline, forensic, digital, behavioral, had been exhausted, and yet the official classification remained active missing person. The file stayed open, but it was empty of progress. By the end of the third month, volunteer groups were still combing through woods and creeks miles beyond Stafford Court. Local organizations like Find Sebastian Rogers, along with national search teams such as EQ-Search and United Cajun Navy, continued their own sweeps long after official operations had scaled back. Hundreds of hours logged, dozens of new zones mapped, every single effort ending in zero results. Detectives began meeting weekly with analysts from the FBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and the Sumner.
Which FBI and LE still aren't doing anything about it. What have they done? They still have no trace of where Sebastian is. I don't think they're looking everywhere. It's sad. They need to get their act together and look in other places that they haven't looked.
County Sheriff's Office. The updates rarely changed. All physical leads had been tested and closed. The FBI's technical division re-examined cell tower data across a 30-mile radius, looking for any blip from Sebastian's phone or any unknown device connecting near his home that night. There were none. The TBI's forensic unit cross-checked doorbell camera timestamps from more than 60 households, covering every possible angle on Stafford Court and its connecting streets. Again, nothing. Investigators faced the truth that, under normal circumstances, a human disappearance without measurable residue is nearly impossible. Even in planned abductions, perpetrators leave behind data, a license plate on camera, a phone ping, a traced DNA strand. Sebastian's case had none of those things. At that point, two dominant theories began to crystallize. The first, the scene was altered after the disappearance.
In my opinion, CP and KP hid the scent. They hid whatever they could to not be able to find Sebastian. Allegedly, in my opinion.
Would mean someone with access, possibly within the family or close circle, had manipulated or removed evidence before police arrived. This could explain the missing footprints, the absence of scent for K9 units, and the perfect stillness of the camera feeds. The second theory, Sebastian left the area before any device was triggered, an incredibly narrow window of time, suggesting movement between 10 p.m. and midnight, before Katie's phone call ended, or before neighbors' cameras rammed for the night. Both explanations carried their own contradictions. If the scene had been altered, it implied deliberate concealment, a cover-up involving knowledge, motive, and opportunity. Yet no one in the household exhibited signs of injury, panic, or guilt in the early interviews. If, on the other hand, Sebastian had left unassisted, it demanded a level of coordination inconsistent with his behavioral profile and condition. Either possibility strained logic. Behind the scenes, the no-trace paradox began to influence how investigators spoke about the case. Standard terminology, missing juvenile, endangered child, runaway risk, no longer fit. They were dealing with something else entirely, a disappearance that seemed to defy the measurable framework of investigation. For months, the community held on to hope. Posters stayed up on store windows. Social media groups kept circulating Sebastian's image. Volunteers organized candlelight vigils and prayer walks through the neighborhoods. Yet the investigation itself reached a plateau. Leads dried up, witness tips repeated earlier claims already dismissed. Law enforcement issued occasional updates reaffirming that the case was active and ongoing. But privately, the momentum had slowed. Some agents began revisiting the timeline not to find what was missing, but to test when the data stopped recording reality. In other words, when did the physical world lose its last measurable contact with Sebastian Rogers? Was it the moment of the loud thud around 10 p.m.? Was it sometime between his mother's phone call and her going to bed? Or was it the 6-hour void between midnight and dawn? when the house was silent and locked. Every answer pointed back to the same void, a 6-hour gap unaccounted for, yet untouched by any trace of human action. By June 2024, the case had drawn the attention of national analysts, forensic psychologists, and missing person experts. Each reviewed the evidence independently, each reached the same impasse. The physical record refused to expand. The no-trace paradox was not a metaphor, it was the literal condition of the case. In forensic terms, the Rogers disappearance stood as an anomaly, a situation where every known investigative method produced zero measurable output, and in the absence of trace, only theory remained. From that point forward, the investigation would divide along 3 paths, each built from the same silence, but each offering a different interpretation of what that silence meant. By the 4th month of the investigation, the official task force reduced the active field operations and shifted toward analytical review, a process built on what investigators called the 3 working theories. Each attempted to explain how a 14-year-old boy could vanish from a locked house without evidence, witnesses, or digital trace. None were fully convincing, but together they formed the framework for everything that came next. Voluntary departure, the wandering hypothesis. This was the earliest and simplest theory, that Sebastian, as a child with autism spectrum disorder, had wandered off voluntarily. Statistically, half of missing children on the spectrum do so at least once in their lives. Many are drawn to light, sound, or movement, sensory cues that can override fear or logic. It was a theory
which, in my opinion and allegedly, I'm pretty sure Sebastian had lots of sensory issues and has been very overstimulated living with his mom and his stepdad, KK and CP. I mean, I shouldn't even be calling them KK a mom and CP a stepdad. They're nothing, in my opinion. They're jokes that need to be locked up.
Grounded in data, not drama. Behavioral analysts from the FBI's BU supported this scenario in the early days. They noted that children with ASD can become fixated on small tasks, even at night, chasing a reflection, retrieving an object, following a pattern of thought that seems trivial to others. It's possible, they argued, that Sebastian woke up, picked up his flashlight, and stepped outside to investigate something. But the facts quickly eroded the logic. The night air was around 40 degrees F. He was barefoot. His shoes were still beside the bed, his phone on the table, his jacket in the closet. For a child with sensory sensitivity, cold ground and sharp textures are deeply uncomfortable. It was inconsistent with his known behaviors. The other flaw was geography. Even if he had wandered out, search teams covered every direction within a 5-mile radius: land, water, drainage, wooded terrain. 2,000 people searched. Yet not a footprint or thread of fabric was found. There were no sightings on any camera, public or private. The wandering theory explained why he might have left, but not how he could have disappeared without trace. For that reason, investigators gradually downgraded it. Still, it couldn't be dismissed entirely. It remained the least accusatory and most psychologically plausible. If Sebastian had indeed stepped out into the dark, he had done so for reasons known only to him, and vanished before any system detected his movement. Accidental or medical event, the concealment hypothesis. The second theory developed quietly inside the command post, one that detectives discussed more than they admitted publicly. It suggested that an accident might have occurred inside the home before midnight, and that its aftermath was concealed, intentionally or not. The idea...
Then if there was an accident inside the home, how come, in my opinion, how come KK didn't go and check? Since she supposedly heard a thump. In my opinion, she made that up. And allegedly.
Stemmed from one detail, the loud thud Katie heard before 10 p.m., followed by Sebastian's voice saying, "I'm fine." If that sound had been more than an ordinary noise, a a fall, a seizure, or a head injury, then a disappearance could have started hours earlier than believed. A medical emergency might have turned fatal, and in panic or fear of consequences, someone could have hidden the evidence. Supporters of this theory within the investigative team pointed to the complete lack of external indicators: no forced entry, no scent trail, no trace outside. Everything pointed inward. The home was the last confirmed location. Logic demanded the explanation start there. However, this hypothesis carried a major flaw. No physical residue supported it. Forensic sweeps of the house, walls, flooring, plumbing, and drains turned up nothing. No blood,
I
no
believe you're
disturbed
right, Brown
surfaces,
Eyes.
no altered fixtures. Luminol tests were negative. Even the
In my
family's
opinion,
vehicles showed no signs
that's
of
what I'm
recent
thinking
cleaning
too.
or biological transfer. Investigators also had to weigh human factors. If concealment had occurred, it would have required composure, coordination, and access to disposal means within hours, while police and neighbors were already mobilizing. Such actions seemed improbable without detection. Nonetheless, the accidental event scenario remained on the table because it answered a key question: why the cameras and sensors recorded nothing. If the event happened before the house entered its quiet midnight period, then the digital void afterward would make sense, not because nothing happened, but because everything had already happened. It was an unsettling theory, one that investigators could neither prove nor dismiss, and it lingered as a private possibility in their internal discussions. Abduction or assisted departure, the vehicle theory. The third theory, and the one that never fully closed, was that someone took Sebastian, either by manipulation or transport. The case had already out formed a individual. The strongest argument for this came not from evidence, but from what was missing. If a person had access to the home and to Sebastian's trust, they wouldn't need to break in. They could persuade him to open the door quietly, perhaps even willingly. The rumor that circulated online
You're
about a
correct,
man in a
CJ.
green hoodie speaking to Katie at a restaurant the night before briefly fueled this angle. The man was located and cleared, but the idea persisted: could someone familiar, perhaps from the family's social circle, have used that trust to approach Sebastian later that night? The FBI considered the vehicle hypothesis plausible, especially after eliminating all local ground.
In my opinion, Sebastian got carried out. He definitely got carried out. And either put into a car or something. Allegedly, and in my opinion.
And water scenarios. If Sebastian had been picked up by car and driven out of the area before sunrise, it would explain the absence of footprints, scent, and camera data. A car interior traps scent, preventing dogs from tracking. However, it required precise timing, an approach and departure during a 6-hour window with no visible headlights and no recorded audio disturbances. The neighborhood layout made that nearly impossible. Stafford Court was a small cul-de-sac with only one entry and exit. Any car movement after midnight should have triggered at least one nearby camera. None did. That paradox, the possibility of an abduction that left no digital signature, kept this theory open but unprovable. It remained the only one that could reconcile the total absence of evidence with a human mechanism of disappearance. By the end of April, these 3 scenarios were all that remained. Each had elements of logic and contradiction. Each answered one question while creating another. Detectives began categorizing them not as competing explanations, but as layers of the same enigma. Perhaps parts of each were true: a voluntary step outside, an unforeseen event, and a third party's intervention. In the internal language of the case file, the notation beside the working summary was simple: cause of disappearance undetermined, no trace, no witness, no closure. As of 2025, more
In my opinion, and allegedly, Seth does need closure. He needs to know where his son is. If Sebastian is alive, in my opinion, he needs to be brought straight to his biological father's house, which is Seth. Not back to KK's or CP's place. No. That will not work. That would not work out, in my opinion.
More than a year after his disappearance, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers remains missing. The official classification has not changed, active missing person. The investigation is still open, shared between the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The federal reward of $5,000 is still active for any verified information that could lead to locating Sebastian or determining what happened between midnight and dawn on February 26, 2024. The case file by now spans thousands of pages. Search logs, forensic results, psychological evaluations, witness statements, technical audits, and hundreds of public tips. Yet its conclusion remains the same as it did on day one: no trace, no confirmed sightings, no physical evidence. For investigators, this is no longer just a missing child case, it has become a long-term forensic anomaly. Over time, the official search operations have transitioned into maintenance mode. The helicopters, K9 units, and drones are no longer deployed daily, but the digital search continues. Analysts still review new data, hoping a single overlooked frame or sensor ping might connect to the timeline. Cold case specialists from the FBI's Violent Crime Section periodically re-examine the file with fresh algorithms, comparing satellite imagery, new AI-enhanced video scans, and pattern recognition software that didn't exist in 2024. None have found a lead. Meanwhile, the public effort has never fully stopped. The community group Find Sebastian Rogers remains active on social media, sharing.
Then, in my opinion, LE and FBI needs to get on it and find a lead. Allegedly, in my opinion.
Updated posters and organizing periodic awareness events. Residents in Hendersonville still display flyers in store windows. Online, the case continues to circulate among true crime forums, Reddit threads, and investigative podcasts. Law enforcement's strategy has evolved into targeted reevaluation rather than wide-scale search. 5 investigative directions are being reactivated for 2025, re-examining all private camera footage and neighborhood vehicle activity from the night of February 25th into the morning of the 26th. This includes not only doorbell and driveway cameras, but also traffic and delivery vehicle footage that might have been archived or overlooked. New AI software will attempt to identify subtle reflections, light changes, shadow movements, invisible to the naked eye. Reprocessing the home network logs, the household router and connected IoT devices, thermostats, lights, smart plugs, are being reanalyzed to detect micro fluctuations in data transmission. Even a momentary signal disruption could indicate motion, power fluctuation, or interference. These small traces might clarify whether the no activity pattern truly meant stillness or a temporary disconnect. Investigating the thud at 10 p.m., the original sound that Katie described has been under renewed forensic review. Experts are studying whether the noise profile, based on her phone's open call with her husband, could be reconstructed. Digital forensics can extract ambient noise from call metadata, and if successful, that audio could reveal whether the sound came from an object falling, a door closing, or something more significant. Re-expanding the aquatic search radius. While initial searches covered 5 miles, investigators now plan to extend to 8 to 10 miles, including lesser-known private ponds and uncharted retention systems created during new housing development. Changes in water levels and vegetation since 2024 could expose items previously hidden from sonar detection. Revisiting the transportation theory, analysts are examining garbage collection, construction, and delivery truck routes from the early hours of February 26th. Each vehicle's GPS log will be rechecked for anomalies, brief unscheduled stops, detours, or time discrepancies. The working hypothesis is that if Sebastian was moved, voluntarily or otherwise, it would have been through some form of mechanical transport within that narrow 6-hour window.
In my opinion, Sebastian is being moved.
In internal memos, the case is now categorized under extended active review. That means every 6 months, a new team of analysts is assigned to reprocess existing data using updated technology. While this approach rarely leads to breakthroughs, it ensures the case is never archived as cold, emotionally. The community remains divided between hope and resignation. Vigils held each February mark another year without answers. Some cling to the possibility that Sebastian is alive somewhere, living under a different name, far from the reach of search grids. Others accept the darker likelihood that whatever happened occurred quietly, within those locked walls, and was hidden too well to recover. For law enforcement, professionalism demands neutrality. The official statement from the Sumner County Sheriff's Office reads the same every few months. This case remains active. Every lead will be pursued until resolution. The search for Sebastian Rogers continues. But within investigative circles, the silence of this case has become almost symbolic, a study in how modern detection systems can still fail when confronted with a perfectly contained disappearance. In a world where nearly every second of life is recorded, one missing child still defies the record itself. The files remain open. The reward remains posted. The questions remain unanswered. The case of Sebastian Rogers is not closed. One investigator.
In my opinion, and allegedly, they need to find answers. And quick. And that's just my opinion.
Said quietly. It's just waiting for something in the data to finally speak. Until that moment comes, the case stands as it began, a single fact surrounded by an ocean of nothing. A boy vanished. Everything else stayed exactly where it was.
Sebastian Rogers, case file. Let's look at this video. The cold case collector.
I lost $50,000 because I didn't buy a domain.
So we've been talking about how we are not your typical true crime podcast. And not only are we also doing video, but we are also investigating cases. So we've been recording our spotlight cases, which we have posted a few of those already. But something that you may not know, which is what we're going to talk about today, is that we are also investigating cases. I am a licensed private investigator. Bree is working on getting her private investigator license as well. So in addition to our spotlight cases, which we are passionate about keeping in the spotlight, keeping those names in the media so that, hopefully more information will come forward and those cases can potentially be solved. We are also going to take on one case, probably quarterly at this point. That may change in the future, but we are also taking on one case where we will be working in the background behind the scenes, actually investigating a case. And we are licensed in the state of Tennessee. We're based out of Nashville, but so we will just be limiting those cases to cases in Tennessee where we are licensed. So our first case is going to be a somewhat local case to Nashville here, and I'm going to let Bree introduce the case to you. This is going to be our first case that we're investigating behind the scenes while we're doing our spotlight cases.
So I'm so excited to introduce Sebastian Rogers. He has been missing since February 25th, 2024. He was 15 years old when he was last seen, and that was around Stafford Court in Hendersonville, Tennessee. When he was missing, he was last seen in black sweatpants, a black sweatshirt, black glasses, and he was thought to have a flashlight.
In my opinion, they probably CP and KK probably put different clothes on Sebastian, and that's just my opinion.
There's been no reports or sightings of him since.
His the anniversary date of him going missing is coming up. Obviously, he went missing in February, and so we thought it was a good time. It's been 2 years. He'll be 17 this year, and his family is still very active. I know his dad especially is very active in trying to keep the case alive, keep the case moving, trying to come up with more leads. So we thought it was a good one to start with. He went missing when he was 15. He's autistic. It was from what I understand, pretty unusual for him to leave the house. He didn't have his phone with him. He didn't have any money with him. The circumstances about him, leaving that night are pretty unknown for the most part, I believe. There's been extensive searches. There's been a lot of investigation, a lot of effort into this case. There's been a lot of media coverage, and he's still missing. So that's the case that we're going to start with. And as I said before, too, this is not your traditional, typical podcast, true crime podcast, where we just speak to you through the microphone or on camera. We are inviting you to participate. So we know there's so many people out there that have so many skills, research skills, have connections, and there's just average, I say average citizens, but people that are not in law enforcement out there solving crimes right now. They have information, they have skills, they have an interest, a passion. And so we would like to invite you to participate in these investigations. And there's so many different ways that you can do it. The easiest, simplest way is just to follow along on our YouTube channel. Follow along on TikTok or Instagram, whichever is your favorite platform, and then repost and share those spotlights and videos and stuff that we share, because it just helps continue to get that information out and get it in front of other people. We also have our subscribers, our members. If you become a member of the Cold Case Collective, there's different levels. Our starter level is.
Let's see what time I'm at for. Okay, 52 minutes and 9 seconds. Okay.
An observer, but from observer to analyst, researcher to analyst. And those levels, everybody gets access to a private Facebook group where you get to discuss all the cases, not just the ones we're investigating, but you can talk about any of the spotlight cases. But specifically, we'll set up discussions regarding, like in this case, Sebastian Rogers. And then if you are either the researcher or analyst level, we're also going to be doing.
And I think, in my opinion, more channels need to be speaking on Sebastian's case. I don't think there's enough channels speaking on his case.
Doing live group calls where we can discuss the case, where we can come up, ask questions, we can, discuss theories, we can discuss the, investigations, the searches, and all the stuff that has been done that's at least in public knowledge. Obviously, right now the case is being handled by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Hendersonville PD did the initial investigation. So there's obviously stuff that they're going to have, information they're going to have that is not available to the general public. But as I said, I have a private investigator license. Bree is working on getting hers. So we are going to try to bridge that gap between the general public and the law enforcement agencies that are working on these cases. And we would just invite you to join along and participate in, in whatever way that, whatever way that you want to, whether that's just, watching the YouTube videos and subscribing to our channel just to help that get more visibility. Again, subscribe, follow, share on, like, comment on social media. All of that engagement helps keep that information in front of more people's eyes. And our biggest goal is, of course, we would love to solve these cases, obviously. Yeah. But one of the best ways to get new information to come forward is by putting these cases in front of people and continuing to expand that visibility until it gets in front of somebody that actually has information that they can bring forward to potentially, solve a case.
Psychologists have discovered that
Bree, what are your thoughts on the audience participation and bringing, not just us working on these cases, but actually bringing an audience in to be team members?
I think that's really what makes us so different from all the other really cool podcasts that are already out there. I think we are just two sets of eyes when there could be way more. And then also it just allows a lot more interaction, right? Like I love listening to true crime. I love reading true crime books. And so being actually on the floor in the investigation is something that I'm going to enjoy a lot. And I think that it's not just us, right? And kind of like what you said, the more people, the better, and the more help and the more answers we can potentially find, maintaining that team aspect. So
yeah, and I have law enforcement experience. I am a licensed private investigator. I have a master's degree in forensic science investigation. Bree has a master's degree in biology. So we each bring something to this that, you know, is enriching our ability to kind of look at this case from a different perspective. But maybe you have extensive experience with genealogy and you can bring that in, maybe not to this case particular, but, you know, future cases where genealogy would be a huge asset to the case. Maybe you have, you know, other talents or experiences that Bree and I do not have, even though, you know, we've got great experience and great, you know, skills, but we're not skilled at everything. When we balance each other out, but maybe you have something that you can bring in that would, you know, make all the difference. So we just invite you to join in, to participate, to become a member of the Cold Case Collective in whatever way that, you know, you would like to. And again, our biggest goal here is to hopefully, you know, solve a case or get at least information that, you know, could lead to a case being solved. So
yeah, even just familiarity in the areas that we're looking at. Like I personally have never been around Stafford Court, to bring it back to Sebastian. And so even if you are in that area and you have information regarding, you know, even just landscaping, I think that that would be just really helpful in getting, again, answers quicker. So
yep. And in addition to participating in those group chats and you know, the possible, you know, the live calls and things like that, you can always just comment on our website. We're going to post, we post show notes for every spotlight episode, but we're also going to be posting updates on Sebastian's case. So at any point,
maybe I might look into some updates on this channel to see what else they've got about Sebastian.
We'll have one post and we'll just post updates at any point. You know, if you have information and you want to, you know, comment on our website or on our videos or anything like that, we invite, you know, we welcome that as well. Anything, you know, anything that could potentially lead to, you know, more new information is always welcome. So all right.
Thanks for watching.
Yep. We hope that you'll follow along on our Sebastian case, our first case of 2026, our first case file.
We're going to watch one more video. WKRN News 2. Okay. Exactly.
And several agencies and groups have searched for 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers, but there's been no new information from law enforcement. News 2's Caitlin Quisenberry spoke with Sebastian's biological father about the search timeline and its progress.
7 months have come and gone.
The search for missing Sumner County teen Sebastian Rogers.
15-year-old Sebastian Rogers. He believes Sebastian is still alive. With no sight of missing Sumner County teen Sebastian Rogers.
Is it 7 months? it's almost been, after 6 months. I mean, it's just like I thought we would have found him by now. Month one was intense for the first half of it. It seemed like there was a lot of people that were on board trying to find Sebastian. And then after that, it became a circus.
15-year-old Sebastian Rogers went missing from his home in Hendersonville on February 26th. Several agencies spent more than a week searching the area around his home, including a landfill in Kentucky, before scaling the search back to an investigative format.
We are still committed to finding Sebastian and bringing him home safe. We have no leads, no details to indicate that Sebastian is not alive.
But community members continued bringing awareness by handing out flyers and posters. Following the search for Riley Strain, the United Cajun Navy came in to help, but in less than a week, pulled back their search efforts after several threats.
Just because you pick up a phone and start recording, you can either help with that or you can hinder.
Since they scaled back the search, Sumner County law enforcement have not reported any new information.
We get tips and stuff that were coming in. We didn't know if law enforcement was following up on them or not. And now that we have Dog's team, he has a whole team of...
If only everyone could sign a petition to get more people to talk about Sebastian's case. That would probably be helpful.
Attorneys, lawyers, private investigators.
The FBI recently announced a $50,000 reward for information following that announcement. Dog the Bounty Hunter joined in on the search, raising that reward to $100,000. But for now, Seth Rogers holds on to the hope that his son is still alive.
And every day I wake up hoping that I get the phone call today that, hey, we found Sebastian.
And clings to the 15 years of memories he shared with Sebastian.
I remember changing diapers. I remember making him bottles. I remember taking him swimming. I remember taking him fishing.
In Nashville, Caitlin Quisenberry, News 2.
Okay, so we're gonna stop it there. And tomorrow we're gonna do a live stream on my backup channel. We're just gonna do a fun Friday night. So, thank you to my moderators and subscribers and whoever was watching from the bushes. Thank you very much. And if you can, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't, and also share my channel out into the YouTube algorithm. And until next time, you guys, peace.
Thank you for the live. You did a good job.
Brown Eyes, can you drop my other link in the channel? I mean, in the chat. Good night.